is up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22. I'm here with my guy Derek, also known as DWeezy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. This is betting the NFL wild card weekend, and yes, my team is in the wild card playoffs right now, playing this week. So we're gonna get to it. We're gonna recap the week, make our bets for this week, and go from there. All right. So last week, week 18, final week of the regular season, was much more exciting than may anticipated it to be. But we'll start with the favorites. They went 9-7 straight up, 6-10 against the spread, and the home teams went 8-8 straight up, and 9-7 against the spread. And the overs actually hit a lot of points scored this week. They
That
went
was
11.
something I was actually
Yeah,
interested in seeing what you would say because that's something I heard that week 18 that there was a bit of a trend behind it that
yeah, 11 and
specifically
5
game
for the overs hitting.
see and that falls right in line with what I heard. Almost you could bet it blind. Game total overs week 18, regardless of what team it was.
Yep. Underdogs hit, home teams hit, and the overs hit. So if you bet all those, you did pretty damn well this last week.
And you know
I
what? That honestly sounds like we were talking about motivation all last week. What teams would have motivation? Well, you're more likely to have motivation at home. You're likely to have more motivation as an underdog because it's been a bad season. You know, things like that. So I'm not shocked. The overhitting teams having more motivation on both sides or players who are getting playing, unusual amounts of playing time. They giving 150% instead of 110.
yeah. And okay, we'll start with the biggest upset of the week, which came in the Jaguars plus 14, plus 60, 650 on the money line versus the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, look, all the Colts had to do was beat this 2-win lousy garbage Jaguars team, and then they get into the playoffs. But they couldn't do that. And why they couldn't do that? Because give them credit. Jaguars came out there. They played great defense. They held Jonathan Taylor to 100 yards. They held him to 77. And Wentz, did what Wentz does. He fails in these big spots. He didn't. He hadn't won a playoff game. This was essentially a playoff game because they needed this to get into the playoffs, and he fails in those moments. And that's what we saw here. That's why I don't trust it, and that's why I'm glad I didn't take this game because I was kind of leaning towards the Colts. I kind of wanted to take that game, but I was like, no. I remember, no, Wentz is gonna mess this up, and that's what he did. He messed this game up, and the Colts lose this game. What you think about this, man?
I actually had this game tied up in a little round robin play I put together in the Discord for the LBHT. Just something I was looking at, more or less the Ravens fans out there if they felt strong about their chances that the Ravens might get that uh, perfect scenario to get into the playoffs. Parlaying all that stuff together. Me personally, I'd looked at a round robin. I slapped a little bit on it. I ended up kind of breaking even, but it helped when the biggest, money line dog in the whole thing was the team that came through, really for me. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, of course, yeah, there's some level of surprise, but to a certain degree, like, no, you do not think that the Jaguars were gonna come out and stomp the Colts. What was it, like
yeah,
28-3?
yeah. Final score was 23-20.
See, no, you don't. Yeah, you hear that score and you go, "Damn, the Colts just whooped that." Oh, the Colts got whooped. Oh, yeah, that'll cause you, rethink some things.
Yeah, I just didn't expect it, man. But that so shit like that happens. But all right, for our next, we got biggest cover against the spread came in my Cowboys kicking the Philadelphia Eagles ass. Yes, they were starting their backups. It was, but when that news came out, you kind of thought this was kind of an easy bet. Okay, the Eagles have their starters out. Cowboys gonna have their starters. So it's like, okay, we're gonna bet. You should bet the Cowboys because they're gonna blow them out because they're playing backups. But you didn't know how long we would leave the starters in there. I mean, we could have taken our starters out whenever we wanted to, honestly. So that was pretty much the only question you had: how long our starters going to play? But we ended up leaving them in there for like 3 quarters. We just slaughtered them. Even our backup scored. Like our backup scored like 2 touchdowns at the end. So even if we had the backups out there, we probably still would have covered this spread. But yeah, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, the Cowboys were in control the whole time. I said what I said last week. I was firmly on the Cowboys. Uh, and I think even with that news coming out, and I think to a certain hand, the book is trying to take into account Week 18 and the possibility that starters aren't playing the whole game and things like that. Um, the line kept moving in the other direction. Like, it's just even when you heard that players might be potentially coming back that you thought would be out, the line still kept moving in the other direction. I originally got wanted to try and run it at that 2.5 that they were offering, ended up having to come back in at that 7.5 after things got voided off because of the COVID announcements for players that went down for Philadelphia. But I didn't ever think that game was going to be uh, threatened even at the 7.5 that I was able to get it at.
Yeah. Just one correction: the score of the Jaguars Colts game was 26-11. I had that wrong. Yeah, so it was more of a
Oh,
domination.
so it was less of an ass whooping.
No, it was more of an absolute. When I said 23-20, it was 26-20.
That's what I'm saying.
26.
It's less of an ass whooping. Still an ass whooping, but just
Yeah.
less of an ass whooping.
All right. For the bad beat of the week, if you had, I mean, a lot of money was coming in on the Los Angeles Chargers and the Raiders game, finishing in a tie. Now, the usual odds for a tie in a regular, game was is plus 6,000. But since so much money was coming in on this game for it to be a tie, because of the scenario that if they tied, that the Steelers would be out and both teams would get in, a lot of money was coming in. The sportsbook suggested, but it was still at plus 1,400. So they adjusted like that. But so if you had that, the game ending a tie, this was a bad beat because it could have ended a tie. All the Raiders had to do was just let the time run out, and both Williams would have got in, and then the sports books would have lost a hell of a lot of
Okay,
money.
so you really believe that that they wouldn't have attempted a field goal or anything, even if they hadn't been able to advance the ball anymore? Because they were going to run a play. They were going to try and advance the ball. So they were clearly going to try and kick a field goal. So that's my question to you. So they were clearly going to try and kick a field goal. So one side was clearly not playing
Yeah, I'm not
towards the
saying they
tie.
couldn't. I'm just saying they shouldn't have. Like they literally, like why take the risk of something messing up? You literally have 100% chance versus a 95, like 5% chance of something bad happening. So I'm not saying they weren't going for it. I'm just saying you could have done that.
But see, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, because of the circumstances, more or less, this is a narrative, and I was watching this game, and I heard the commentators literally try and pump this narrative. Of course, it sounds good in theory, and it'd have been a crazy storyline if it had ended in a tie. Like, I was really hoping that we would see a long field goal attempt, and maybe that wide left, wide right, just short kind of scenario, because that would be an incredible story. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to see the tie. Like, I was looking forward to it. But yeah, just but to say that, I like I said, it was clear that Pittsburgh was going to try and advance the ball and clearly get at least attempt to get in better a position to attempt a field goal. The Chargers called a timeout. It wasn't a situation where like the Chargers could have stopped the clock and preserved more clock.
Yeah.
So yes, it makes sense that okay, you basically stop the play so you could ensure you got what personnel you wanted in, what play call you wanted in. Um and yes, the tie was see, I think not enough people have watched games and specifically overtime games where you see it half the overtime tick off because it's only a 10-minute period. We're so
Mhm.
accustomed to the 15-minute period that, you know, it takes X amount of time to run, a 7-8 play drive. You can run a 7-8 play drive and not get in field goal range and have to punt to the other side and burn 3.5 minutes off a clock, 4 minutes off a clock. Well, that's almost half the period in overtime. You know, you have a couple punts in OT,
Yeah.
you start potentially looking at a tie because you're talking about a 10-minute span. So, yes, I think it would have been a great storyline. I would have loved to have seen it just for the simple
Yeah.
fact that the two teams that tied made it into the playoffs. And if one would have simply won the game, a whole separate team would have made it into the playoffs. Like, it was just, it would have sucked to have been a
Yeah.
Steelers fan. I would like, oh man, you talk about that would have been your bad beat right there. That's the
Yeah.
difference. That's what this tie would have meant. That was the difference in being the bad beat being betting on the tie and the bad beat being a Steelers fan.
Yeah. Exactly, man. All right. For my picks last week, I went finally had a winning week. It's been a long goddamn time since I had a winning week. Finally got one. 3-2. Um, my best pick was the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. I had the Lions +2. I knew Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to play that long. And I just followed the trends of what was happening this season. Lions, every time they get their ass kicked the next week, that's when they play hard. And that's exactly what happened here. They played hard, they played tough, played the Packers. Even when Aaron Rodgers was in there, they were still, keeping it close. They were still going toe to toe. And then, Jordan Love went out there. And he went out there and lost the game. And that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought the Lions would outright win this game, and they did. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I was able to catch some of this game. I was bouncing back and forth between a couple games at the time, but yeah, it was definitely competitive the whole way. That was something we were talking about coming into this game, and that's something I expected to see when the team, when Detroit was out there. Uh, a neat little storyline I happened to catch just because the games. I didn't get catch much about it, but apparently there was some family matchup or brother matchup taking place. Saint Brown. There's a
Oh yeah, the
player
two
for
receivers.
yeah. There's a player for Detroit Lions and a player for the Packers, and
Mhm.
I think it was the parents sitting in the stands. They got a custom
Yeah.
made jersey that's this mix of it's like done at the seam, but it's like Detroit sleeves and the Packers chest piece.
Mhm.
And it was just really something awesome to see. And then you get this competitive game and everybody's on the field, busting ass and like we said, they was motivated getting out there, and it being that divisional game, I'm pretty sure there was some people on the Packers side that were motivated to go out there against the Lions.
Yeah. So I got that one right. Mostly I got my picks pretty much right on because I had like two other games I just picked the outright upset. All three of my wins were outright upsets, so I was happy about that. What I was not happy about was me picking the Chiefs -10 against the Broncos. I should have listened to myself the whole. I mean, I've been saying the whole season that I don't trust the Chiefs. Yeah, I still bet them last week. I just needed to listen to myself, watch shows back, and then I wouldn't have bet this game, but I did. I mean, the Broncos probably should have won this game if they don't fumble, right, when they're in the red zone and they, Chiefs don't get that scoop and score. I think the Broncos will win this game because if they get that touchdown, they go up two scores, and I'm not sure if the Chiefs can come back from that. But yeah, it was pretty bad pick from me. Um, what do you think about this result?
Oh, I didn't see this game, but I completely agree with what you said, especially at towards the beginning of the season. That was something I pointed out about this Chiefs team. Um, I believe it was the Browns, possibly. It was week 1 or week 2. They had an early matchup where literally they won the game because of 2 late turnovers by the other team that they were able to rack up 14 points in what ended up being like a 21-point quarter. Like, it's not a question of the ability this team has, but at a certain point, it's the question of consistency. And you've seen the games where they hadn't been able to pull it together for that late quarter push and, you know, some wacky play happen and catch that bounce their way. Like this season, we've seen what happens when the ball bounces the other way. And the Chiefs aren't as dangerous as we want to believe and as we've seen them be at times.
Oh, all right. How did you do, man? What was your record last week?
I went 2-3 on the week. That seemed to have been basically my consistent, consistently on the week. 2-3. Going into typically a Monday game, sitting on 2-2, looking to try and fall on the right side of the line.
No. Oh, all right, man. I'm gonna get into this week's pick, playoff wild card weekend. Before that, some things to look out for this week. We have 5 of the 6 games are rematches. Only one not being is the Niners Cowboys. And also first ever Monday night game. So you got a little extra time to get one more bet. If you didn't do so well on Saturday and Sunday, you got one more chance on Monday to try to recoup your losses. And yeah, all home teams are favored. I'm pretty sure this weekend. So something to look out for. All right, I'll give my first pick, and my first pick is Bengals -6 at home against the Raiders. Taking the Bengals because I mean there's a lot better than Raiders. Raiders barely squeaked by the Chargers last week. They played 5 quarters, so it has less time. And this game is on Saturday, so they're going on a short week, and they're going to travel to the East Coast time zone. That's never good for a West Coast team. They a lot of the time that those teams that are traveling that far, they play bad. They put pretty much all they had into last week, trying to get into the playoff. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are just on fire right now. I really don't see the Raiders having the guys in the secondary that can handle them. Um, and yeah, I mean they don't have they don't have the talent to compete with the Bengals right now. So yeah, the Bengals aggressive offense is going to win this game. They're going to cover the spread. I don't think this game is going to be close, and so I'm taking the Bengals -6. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I'm right there with you on the -6. I agree with you. I think we could see another game like the Chiefs Raiders where it was that big blowout. It was something crazy like 52-19. The Raiders may have even scored less than that. But yeah, I think this game could definitely get out of hand early. Um, I'd have to double check. I believe Mixon should be fairly ready to go. If not, I don't want to say fully healthy because I can't really. I don't think you can use that term on too many players in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
There might be one or two guys on every team that you could say is fully healthy. Um, but so yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to contain Jamar Chase. I think Burrow, he's he might come across as cocky, and yeah, he probably is a little bit, but he's also gone out and delivered. And that's
hmm
the one thing you don't want somebody like with a mindset like that to do. That's how you get that not necessarily invincible mentality, but you tell yourself the greatest and then you go out there and do it. Well, prove me wrong. And so, you get hot in the playoffs. That's the type of You may not win the Super Bowl, but that's the type of run it'll get you to a championship game. It'll get you to a Super Bowl game. So I'm behind the Bengals -6 on this going into this weekend.
All right. My next pick, I got uh, the Buffalo Bills -4 at home against New England. The in the first two matchups, you got one game when the Bills lost due to the bad weather. Josh Allen couldn't really get going because ball was just going everywhere in that bad wind. But in the second game, I think this is what this game is going to more look like, where Josh Allen was more able to play like himself. They won the game by double digits, and the Bills just have more talented team, better weapons. Um, you know, the Patriots aren't really working with a lot on their offensive side. Mac Jones didn't play well either of the two games. Obviously everybody knows he only threw 3 times like the first game, and then threw for less than 200 yards in the second game, 2 picks. So yeah, I just don't believe the Pats really have the firepower to keep up with the Bills, and they can't and won't be able to cover this 4-point spread. Yeah, what you have on this game?
I'm on the other side of this game actually.
Okay.
I'm a believer in coaching staffs to a certain degree, especially when they're proven. And that's one thing you can say with Belichick in New England. When it comes to things like playoffs, these teams do not mess around. They can be, we've seen New England make runs deep in the playoffs with teams that we thought were lesser teams. And at the time, yeah, it may have been things like, with Tom Brady maybe carrying some
That's the thing.
players.
They always had Tom Brady though. They
Fair
don't have
enough,
him
but
anymore.
how many times they've been to the playoffs since not having Tom Brady?
0.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting
Impressive.
at. This is the first time. So, yes, that's a possibility, but that's not necessarily something we can rely on and look at. And Belichick has shown that he ain't exactly no fool with or without Tom Brady. Um, but yeah, I think, this team has played well. They've played consistently. They know how they need to play. Josh Allen has been fading, in my opinion, towards the tail end of the season. Um, I think New England. If New England loses, they'll cover. That's how I see this game more or less. If New England doesn't win straight up, they'll cover on the spread. Because I believe I want to double check what I got it at. Think it was +4. Yep, +4 is
Yes.
where I got it at.
I got it -4. So we different sides on that one. But the next game we got, at least I got Philadelphia Eagles. I have them +9 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That doesn't necessarily mean I think they're going to win. So I think they will lose because I think Tom Brady's Tom Brady. I think the Bucks are going to cover. I think the Eagles will cover the spread. Um, they were a 7-point underdog last time they played, and they were able to get that backdoor cover in a loss to Bucks in the 39th. And Bucks have some injuries, and they have to deal with. They lost some offensive weapons like Godwin. Obviously everybody knows about Antonio Brown leaving. So if Brady doesn't have total full all his weapons with them. And the Eagles, they're limited, passing. I get that, but it's kind of hard to prepare for this college style offense that they've been doing. If you're used to facing that all the time, might come up and surprise you. So that's why I kind of think it's going to be a little hard, tough for the Buccaneers to deal with. And yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I like it to uh, be similar to how the Bucks played the Washington football team last year. It was kind of a close game, hard fought game because they didn't really know how to deal with Heineke. And I kind of feel like it's going to be similar to that, where they kind of don't really know how to deal with this type of offense. And I think they'll still win, but the Eagles will cover the +9 spread.
See, again, I'm on the other side of this one. I kind of don't really agree with your comparison there on, like with Heineke, he more or less operated out of broken plays, and
Yeah,
with
I'm
Philip.
not saying like it's comparing their offenses. I'm just saying they didn't really prepare for like that. They didn't
Well,
really know
but
anything
that's
about
what I'm
him.
kind of getting at. Heineke, in a nutshell, was more or less broken plays, and that's not something you can game plan around. Yes, you try and prepare your team. Like, here's what we're gonna try and maintain. You know, stay with the wide receivers. Don't break after the quarterback if you see him outside the pocket. Type. I'm just. Like I said, and this may just be difference of opinion because I'm on the other side of
Mhm.
this one. But Hurts has basically been this offense in the same way you've seen a Lamar Jackson and in the past at times like a Cam Newton uh sort of carry a offense and push a offense. I think in a lot of ways that's what's happened in Philadelphia. And Hurts being banged up, maybe, not necessarily saying the bright lights get to him, but it's first time in the playoffs, things like that. Like, yeah, it's a different setting. It's, pl- players admit it, after the fact, down the line, plenty of players have admitted it, yeah, that first game, that first quarter, first half or whatever, you know, it's different. Yeah. It gets to you a little bit. So
Mhm.
I think, we got better coaching on Tampa's side, better
Yeah.
roster. Uh, you know, Tampa's been playing well, even with all the injuries and things they've been dealing with. Mike Evans should be good to go. Fournette's coming back. Giovanni Bernard, as a one Ferris might say, UNC great Giovanni Bernard. Uh, but yeah, so I'm gonna be with Tampa minus the 9.5. I think they win by double digits.
Okay. Well, again, little different for those two picks, but we'll see if we have the same on this one. All right. We got 49ers at Dallas. I have my Cowboys -3 at home. And this we beat up on less talented teams. And that's what I believe the Niners are. I think they're less talented than we are. That's what we're used to beating up on. Jimmy G's not as good as Dak. The defense and the offensive weapons they have, I don't think they compare to the Cowboys. The only advantage they have, they have Shanahan's scheme, which is a running scheme, and I believe we'll be able to minimize that if we take an early lead and we force Jimmy G to have to throw the ball, and he's going to be having to throw the ball against the top turnover team in the league. We have the most interceptions. We know how to turn the ball over, and Jimmy G is prone to making mistakes like that. And if we do that, I believe we can win. We'll cover the spread. And yeah, don't forget that the Cowboys still at the top of the league when it comes to covering against the spread. They're 13-4, and for the season, 5-1 in the last six. That's why I think the Cowboys will win and cover the -3.
See, I think Kyle Shanahan was preparing for this moment when he was at the draft and all this talk about we were not knowing if we're gonna be alive on come Sunday, and it's good. This is why they drafted Trey Lance. Nah, forget all of that. I'm with Dallas -3 because I do not. A lot of what you said, I don't feel this team has the weapons and what it takes to beat Dallas. I do, one of those instances where I think maybe they have the better coaching, but we've seen Kyle Shanahan do a lot with that team, and especially this roster. I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough and generate enough points and control the game well enough uh, for them to be able to have a scenario where it's likely they win. You get more into some sort of shootout where either you got to keep up or put up points. That's going to favor the Cowboys. That's going to favor away from what Shanahan and their offense with the 49ers is going to want to do. And it being such a low spread, which kind of shocked me, you know, Maybe it's just me, maybe it's the book, maybe it's because it's a public team and they know that number is going to get bet up some. But I was saying it last week. That number came out at -2.5, and I was all over it. I wasn't letting that slip by. Now, of course, I wasn't able to ride with that, but they put it out at 7.5, and I wasn't letting that go by. I seen this number come out. They -3. Yeah, give me that right there. I said it a couple weeks back. You don't get in front of a hot team, and you go into the playoffs winning. You go into the playoffs hot. That makes you a dangerous team.
Yeah. And also another factor is that both Shanahan and Dan Quinn were on the same staff, that on the Falcons. So I think Dan Quinn knows his offense, knows what he's been scheming up.
That's a
Um,
possibility
and
because that was something I heard thrown around a little bit when the Panthers and the Cowboys played. Dan Quinn being with the Atlanta Falcons for that stretch, he is seen up close and personal twice a year the Carolina Panthers and what their roster and personnel is
yeah,
capable of, not just from a statistic standpoint, but from a physical on the field performance standpoint.
yeah. So I think he'll know how to put his players in position to counteract Shanahan's run schemes. So there's that. All right, the next game we have is the Arizona Cardinals at Los Angeles Rams. Cardinals are +4, and that's exactly what I'm taking. I'm taking them +4 in this game because I don't trust Stafford. I mean Stafford never wins in big spots. Like he hasn't won a playoff game. I think he's just a loser. I think he's a loser quarterback. He makes pretty stats, but that's all he got. He's been throwing a ton of picks this season. I think he continues to do that in this game. And Shannon Jones going to get after him. He's going to force him to make those mistakes. Um, and then both regular season matchups, the underdog won, and Cardinals are the underdog, so I'm taking them. And in the first game, it was a 4-point spread. Second game was 3-point spread, so it's pretty much spread just right in line with those other ones. So I think you can take that into account. And the Cardinals are 8-1 against the spread on the road this season. And yeah, I think as long as Kyle Murray can avoid Aaron Donald for a little bit, I think they can get the outright upset in this one.
And I agree with you. I'm on the Arizona plus the 4. I was kind of shocked this wasn't closer to a pick 'em. Um, you know, basically they're kind of saying if this was at a neutral site, this would almost be a this would be a Arizona +6.5, +7 type game.
Yeah,
And I don't see them. And I'm not basing this off of the things like, oh, like a JJ Watt's coming back. No, I mean like as is, as they have been the past couple weeks. Uh they're not a touchdown underdog against a team like the Rams.
especially in the
Um
divisional rivalry, like that's always going to be like back and forth, close game.
exactly. I would have expected this number to come out closer to a 2.5, 3, and maybe worked its way up to a 4 or worked its way lower. But to come out at +4, I think they're expectant. And it could just, be trying to maybe work that, public money, people coming in on the Rams, things like that. Maybe driving that number up a little higher, but +4 with a
Yeah,
team like Arizona who's been fairly hot, who, you know, for the most part has been fairly healthy. The people, the few injuries they seem to have that were going to be cleared up, uh, that was already handled a week or two before the season ended. It's not you got somebody coming back for their first game. I think that's something that the Titans are going to have to deal with Derrick Henry, and I don't recall how much field time, if any, he saw this past week, but that's something he's going to have to face. Uh, and that's just something you can't predict. Uh, so yeah, Arizona, the position they're in, underdogs, give me the 4. They've been probably the best road team all season long. Yep, I feel confident taking that +4.
all right. Last game we got is the Pittsburgh Steelers at Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are minus 12 and a half. And I will take that. I'll lay the points there because I just feel that the Steelers have no shot in this game. Not even to cover because you can look at the last matchup. I mean, the Chiefs blew them out 36-10, and they were a 10-point favorite then. So a 12.5 point favorite now. I think it's pretty much going to be a similar game to that. They're just going to blow them out because the Steelers just have no offense. They did because Roethlisberger's old and broke down. He can't throw. All he does is he throw these 10 yards or less, balls. He has no deep ball, and that's not going to score points. And so they're not going to be able to, manage to even get enough points to cover the spread. So I
You
think the
mean
Chiefs put it
40
on them.
attempts for 170 yards isn't a winning
Yeah,
recipe in the NFL?
nah. So yeah, I mean, I just don't think they can do much against them. And the Chiefs, if you just go by trends, they've been pretty good against the spread, 6-2 against spread in the last 8 games. So just going with that. Chiefs minus 12.5. What's your
Yeah,
pick?
I actually, yeah, I expect a big game. If you can find an alternate spread, maybe something that even goes even higher, Chiefs giving up points, I mean, wow, if a if a book's willing to offer you that, because that number will be priced well. I would be shocked if it was anything under like plus 200. If you found like a minus 16, minus
Mm-hmm.
17. Um, Something I was thinking about earlier in the day was, quite often you think about potentially taking a Super Bowl futures, maybe a team or two, and hedging out a little bit. Uh, well, if the Chiefs is one of those teams you're thinking about, I almost wonder if it'd be cost efficient to some degree. Hold off on playing them this week, even if you feel like they're your favorite, because if they have a bad game against Pittsburgh, that number could go up. We're all expecting this blowout against Pittsburgh. If they go out and only win by a touchdown, 8, 9 points, people might view that as this bad, god awful game, like it's not a playoff game and people don't show out.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be able to find more value holding off on playing a team like Kansas City just because of their inconsistency. Uh, because I know when I looked, I think the number was around plus 400 to win the Super Bowl at the time. Uh, I could be wrong. That may have just been the AFC odds, but I believe it was a Super Bowl. Uh, but either way, that's not very high, and they have that bad game against a team like Pittsburgh. You might see that jump 75 points, 100 points,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, if you already feel like that's your favorite, go ahead and hedge that potential play now, because if they win, that number's not getting any lower, really. I mean, okay, it was plus 450. If they win, what? It might be plus 300. They're not going to be the top favorite. They're not the number one seed, so they're not going to be the top favorite even going into the next round. So you're still going to see like a strong. I'd be surprised if it was closer around like a plus 280, lower to closer to 300. But yeah, you still gonna see the same rough amount of value what you're seeing now. And then you also have that team that you hedged with pre-playoffs where you might be seeing plus 900, plus 1100 on a second round team.
Yeah. All right, man. You got anything else? Any other picks? Any props?
No,
Nothing
yeah,
else?
I'm not on any props at the moment.
All
That may
right.
be something I look at closer to game day, just with the way how stuff comes out. Um, with COVID and everything in the playoffs, I think that might be the best way to approach the props. Because not necessarily that you lose money, but you don't want to get into a scenario where you're potentially handicapping a game, and more or less you're thinking about these props and you start getting a little even if you hadn't made the plays, getting a little too invested mentally, thinking the game's going to go one way. And come Saturday, Sunday, come Monday, if that player isn't there, that might drastically change how you feel or think about the game. Because a lot that it's about, that's why try to tell people, handicap the game how you think things are going to go. Evaluate it for yourself, because
Mm,
your opinion of a certain player or a certain, assortment of players could vary from someone else. You may more kind of like boxing. Not everybody agrees the same pound for pound fighters. Their orders are different, rankings are different. So, that definitely with these playoff props, the numbers are typically sharper around this type of year, less going on. Um, you would like to get on it as early as possible, but with things like, COVID in the world and the protocols in place, uh, it could just be best holding off until that last moment when potentially everybody that's starting, not only from a health perspective, but who's going to be allowed to start.
yeah. All right. Before we go, I have some over and unders for these games. The first one I got is a Bengals and Raiders game. I'm going to take the over 49. I think, yes, the Bengals are going to beat them pretty bad. I think they're going to get up early, but I think the Raiders will come back late and will hit
The
that
Bengals might score
over.
more than 49 themselves.
Yeah, probably. But if they don't, if they just get like a 28-0 lead, um, I think the Raiders can, they do have an offense. The Raiders still do have good, good offensive weapons. They could put up points.
Yeah, I could see a
So I believe they could.
35-17 game.
Yeah, I think they can, backdoor hit the over, in the garbage time. So I'll take the over 49. Um, Bills Pats. I have over again. And you wouldn't think it be over, considering the first game, more struggle, but in the second game you saw more points scored by the Bills, and
That
I
first
think
game
it,
was an anomaly. I don't think you can
yeah,
really include that in any sort of real trends or, comparisons. Like you said, it's sort of, it's like this standalone occurrence.
yeah. So
And
like I said,
that's
yeah.
go ahead, go
I,
ahead.
well, I was saying, like I said before, I think like it to more the second game. And 44 is a small number. I think it's small enough so that I think it can hit the over.
Yeah, I agree
Um,
with you there. I think that's one of those ones. The number isn't high enough to really investigate the under. And I'm traditionally an under better. I'm sitting here thinking about it like, you're talking 4-point spread. So you're talking about this game being like 23-19, 22-18, something crazy like that. You know, 24-20 right there on the nose. Like there's not too many ways you can get under that figure. I think both these teams, they're going to put up a couple touchdowns, a couple field goals, get in that 21 to 24 point range. Uh so yeah, I think it's either a no play or you look to the over on that one.
yeah. All right. In the Bucks Eagles game, I got the under. Considering how much the Eagles run the ball, I think they can more control the ball and waste time down and won't be as high scoring. Brady's kind of been struggling with the weapons he has, not scoring too many points. And it's 49. It's pretty high. So I think it's high enough where I can take the under on this game.
I actually agree with you, even though I think that the Bucks will cover that spread. I think there will be more running and like I said, Fournette will be back, Giovanni Bernard will be back. We've seen them still have some level of success out of Ronald Jones with the run game when they've called upon his name. Uh I do think, the Philadelphia will try and run the ball, and so that'll help bleed off time. But I see a situation where they're not successful running the ball. So I think, especially early on, they're going to want to try and run the ball and stick to, they're going to come in with a game plan that, a way to attack Tampa, but I think they're going to try and stick with that run game and work the ball that way. And so that more so plays into that under, kind of like what you're saying. With this game, I could see you could potentially look into like a team point under on Philadelphia. I'm on the other side of this one. You might feel you, you might think this is a game where you take the over on the Philadelphia team point uh, because you think they'll cover that spread. So at a certain point, you start asking, how many points do you think Tampa can really score? Because are they talking about it being a 10-point game? You know, if that team point total um uh, for the Eagles is around 17, which is potential. I think I've been I was poking my head in and
Yeah,
out
I'm
on
I'm
team
more looking
totals
at
all
like
season.
27-20 type
That's
of
what I'm
score.
saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, like from your perspective, because you think they can cover that large spread. If that team totals 17, 18, you might want to jump on the over there. Me on the other side, I think it kind of the points will be roughly in that same range, but more a 27-13 game. Uh, so but I might look more towards that team total under with Philadelphia. So
Hmm.
definitely your perspective on the game does come into play, but that's one way of finding some different angles where you're creating opportunities and more outs for yourself, and also even even if you play both, you go with the spread and the team point total, not parlaying them together or anything, just playing them separate. Both can hit, regardless of how things go. And so you're creating more openings and opportunities for yourself without even hedging against yourself.
Next game I got is Cowboys Niners game, and it's big numbers, 51, and that's why I'll take the under on this game because usually when the Cowboys, besides the Buccaneers game, a lot of the time when Cowboys play a good team, they don't score that as many points as we usually do. Especially with the way that the Niners are going to run the ball. I believe we are going to run the ball because I think that's the way to beat them if we run the ball. So both teams running the ball, I don't think that equals up to a whole ton of points. It's not like it's going to be an air raid, type of game where they're going to be putting up a lot of points all over the place. So that's why I'll take the under here.
Yeah, I definitely see a more smash mouth type game. Kind of what we were saying with Philadelphia, you get more into that run game when you're more dedicated to the run game. You burn that clock off more, and especially in the first half when you're less likely to use timeouts and things like that. If that score doesn't get to a certain point, it's high. It's pretty difficult to reach some of those higher numbers, like because that's a certain range where you start talking about if you were to try and entertain a conversation about trying to take the over, you need first half points. You got to have them. There's no way around that. And if you don't get that, there's no way that over's hit. So if you feel like this is going to be a more smash mouth game, especially in the first half, and it's going to be an ugly first half, even if these teams come out and put up 20, 24 points apiece, that's still only 48. You're not covering that total. You know,
Uh, but yeah, all right. In the Kansas City Steelers game, I also have the under just because I don't think the Steelers will score any
well, it takes
points.
both teams scoring points to
Exactly.
hit a
Thanks both
over.
teams and the Chiefs and to score all the points, probably get in the 30s, and Steelers won't really score anything. So I have the under 46 and a half is the total there. So like the under in that one.
Man, it would be crazy, and I would love to see what the odds would be potentially be. But for Kansas City and Cincinnati to cover the game total over with their team point total from the day. Because I potentially think we could see another instance where you see some 50-point scores going up. Uh, I mean, there's the firepower to do it. That's for sure. So yeah, I definitely with that game, like you said, the Chiefs could go out and put up 35, 40 points by themselves.
Mhm.
And yeah, Pittsburgh could fall over into 10 points.
Yeah. And the you were just talking about like these 50-point games and big explosive games and having the offensive power. That's why I'd see in this next game the Cardinals and the Rams because I think both offenses do have that type of firepower to do put up a lot of points. That's why I'll take the over 49 and a half in that game. I think it will be a back and forth battle, and I think Kyle Murray and Matt Stafford are capable of throwing it all over the field and scoring a lot of points. So I like the over.
Yeah, I agree with you. Two explosive offenses, like you were saying. Um, both teams know how to utilize their personnel well, whether it be, you know, neither team I think anybody really thinks of as having much of a run game, but they can hit you in the run game if they try to. Um, I'm not sure the full running back situation in Arizona. I don't know if Chase Edmonds his health status, but like I said, Murray his running ability, uh, that dedication where they may not run the ball as often, but they don't abandon it just completely. You see, yeah, it's a running back by committee in LA, but they know how to utilize their running backs to fit their offense. Even if it's just a designed, little short dump to the running back or a short screen or something like that. You um, but yeah, those explosive offenses, that's where you see some of these 30, 40 point games, that back and forth quick scores.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's all the bets we have in this for this weekend. Um, good luck to everybody. That's the show. So where can find people find you out there?
You can find me at DWeatherly90 on Twitter. Like I say, every week, lunch break hot take. Wednesday, around 8 o'clock, I come on and do the lunch money bets segment. Um, Like I said, keep your eyes and ears open. I do have plans to be dropping a YouTube channel here in the very near future. So, yeah, I look to, bring a little bit more content. Maybe not just some betting things, but definitely, sports inspired, maybe a little bit more on the variety side when it comes to not just sports stories, maybe a little bit more, not necessarily off the field, but in depth behind the scenes of the sports players and more daily lives, routines, things along those lines. But I'm, always coming up with ideas and things that I might go with. So there's no telling what you might come across.
All right, man. You can find me at NFLKL22 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find my articles on the website, let'sgetradionetwork.com. You can find me on the channel on Good Friends, Better Rivals, our episode talking about the wild card weekend, who we think is going to win, is up right now on the channel. And like and subscribe, and hopefully you can watch us on Friday, which is our 100th episode celebration of the Schmodown Crackdown. That is our main show. So hopefully you can come by and watch for a little bit. Going to be on for a little while, so hopefully you come visit us. But yeah, hopefully you guys, everybody wins this week. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to help y'all win. Trying to help ourselves win too. So yeah, we'll see you next week in the divisional round, and we'll be picking those games. And yeah, we'll be betting those games there. All right, guys. See you next week.